There is a quiet teaching hidden in the simplest acts of life. Not everything that protects you makes a loud sound. Not everything that harms you arrives with warning. Some things enter silently and slowly take from you younger peace, your clarity, your strength. Look around your space. The corners of your home are often ignored. Dust gathers there, shadows linger there, and energy both seen and unseen tends to settle where attention does not reach. Just as water becomes stagnant when it does not flow, the atmosphere around you can become heavy when it is not cleansed. You may ask, what does salt have to do with this? Salt in its humble form carries a long memory of the earth. It absorbs, it purifies, it balances. For generations it has been used not only to preserve food but to preserve harmony. When placed with intention, it becomes more than a substance, it becomes a boundary. Tonight, when you place a small amount of salt in the corners of your room, do not do it with fear. Do it with awareness. Understand what you are choosing. You are no longer allowing what is heavy to stay. You are no longer giving space to what quietly drains you. But remember, this salt alone is not the transformation. If your thoughts remain restless, if your words carry bitterness, if your actions create disturbance, then no ritual will save you. The outer world reflects the inner state. The true drain is not just around you, it is within you. It is in the habits that weaken your spirit, the worries that replay without purpose, the attachments that exhaust your heart. So as you place the salt, also pause. Observe your breath. Notice your thoughts without chasing them. Release what you no longer need to carry. Let this simple act become a reminder. Protection is not about building walls, but about creating balance. Cleansing is not about removing everything, but about allowing only what serves peace to remain. When the night deepens and silence fills your space, trust that small mindful actions carry great power. Not because of superstition, but because of intention. And in that intention, you begin to reclaim what was slowly slipping away. Silent energy affects your life. Not all negativity is visible. Some quietly drains your peace, clarity, and strength over time. There are forces in life that do not announce themselves. They do not arrive with noise or chaos, yet their presence can be felt in subtle ways through a constant heaviness in your mind, a lack of motivation, or a quiet exhaustion that seems to have no clear cause. This is the nature of silent energy. It does not strike all at once. Instead, it drains you slowly, moment by moment, until you begin to feel disconnected from your own sense of balance and clarity. Many people search for dramatic reasons behind their unrest, but often the truth is much simpler and much quieter. Think about how a small leak works. A single drop of water seems harmless, almost insignificant, but over time that steady dripping can empty a container or weaken a structure. In the same way, the unseen energies around you and within you can gradually take away your peace. It may show itself in overthinking, in unnecessary worry, in tension that sits in your body without reason. You may not notice when it begins, but you will certainly feel its weight as it continues. Your environment plays a deeper role in this than you might realize. Spaces that are ignored, cluttered, or rarely touched begin to hold a kind of stillness that is not peaceful but stagnant. Corners especially become places where both physical and emotional residue gathers. When you live in such an environment, even without realizing it, you begin to carry that same heaviness within yourself. It reflects in your mood, your energy, and your ability to focus. But it is important to understand that this is not something to fear. It is something to become aware of. Once you recognize that not all influences in your life are loud or obvious, you begin to move differently. You become more attentive, more mindful of both your surroundings and your inner state. You start to notice what drains you and what restores you. The true shift happens when you stop ignoring these subtle signs. When you choose to bring awareness into your space and your habits, you begin to close the slow leaks that have been weakening you. You realize that peace is not something that suddenly appears, it is something that must be protected gently and consistently. And in that awareness you take back control, not by fighting what is unseen, but by strengthening what is within you. Neglected spaces hold heavy energy. Corners of your home collect stagnant energy, just like they collect dust, and need mindful cleansing. There is a tendency in human life to focus only on what is obvious. We clean the surfaces that are visible, arrange the things that others can see, and pay attention to the areas that seem important. But what is often overlooked carries its own quiet influence. The corners of a space, the places where light rarely rests and hands seldom reach, begin to gather more than just dust. They become still, and in that stillness a kind of heaviness can form. Consider how nature behaves. Flowing water remains fresh, clear, and life-giving. But when water is trapped and unmoving, it loses its purity. It becomes cloudy, then stagnant. The same principle applies to the spaces you live in. When areas are neglected, when energy does not move through them, they begin to hold what is no longer useful. This is not something mystical, it is something deeply natural. Your surroundings reflect patterns of care, attention, and awareness. When you spend time in a place that has been ignored, even if you cannot explain it, you may feel slightly uncomfortable. Your mind may wander more than usual. Your body may feel tense without a clear reason. This is because your senses, even beyond conscious thought, are always observing your environment. They respond to order and disorder, to movement and stillness, to light and shadow. The corners of your home, though small and easily forgotten, quietly contribute to this overall experience. Neglect does not happen all at once. It builds slowly. One day of inattention becomes many, and before you realize it, those forgotten spaces begin to influence the atmosphere of the entire room. It is similar to how small, unresolved thoughts can gather in the mind. At first they seem unimportant, but over time they create a weight that is difficult to ignore. The outer world and the inner world often mirror each other in this way. Bringing attention back to these spaces is not about perfection, it is about restoring balance. When you clean, arrange, or even simply acknowledge these corners, you are allowing movement to return. You are breaking the stillness that had become heavy. In doing so, you create an environment that feels lighter, more open, and more supportive of your well-being. This simple act also carries a deeper lesson. What you ignore does not disappear, it accumulates. Whether it is in your surroundings or within your thoughts, neglect creates stagnation. But awareness brings flow back into your life. When you choose to care for even the smallest parts of your space, you are also training your mind to be present, to notice, and to respond with intention. In the end, it is not about the corners themselves. It is about what they represent, a reminder that even the smallest, quietest parts of your life deserve attention. And when you begin to give that attention, you will notice a shift, not just in your space, but within yourself. Salt as a symbol of purification. Salt represents balance and absorption. It helps remove negative energy when used with intention. There is something profound about simple things that are often overlooked. Salt is one of them. It sits quietly in kitchens, used without much thought, yet it carries qualities that have been recognized for generations. It preserves, it absorbs, it balances. It does not demand attention, yet its presence changes the nature of what it touches. In this way, it reflects a deeper truth. Power does not always appear in grand or complicated forms. When you consider the idea of purification, it is easy to imagine something elaborate or distant. But true cleansing often begins with the simplest elements. Salt, formed through time and nature, holds a grounded stability. It draws in moisture, it neutralizes, it creates a subtle boundary between what is balanced and what is not. This is why it has been used across cultures, not just for physical purposes, but as a quiet symbol of clearing and protection. However, the object itself is only one part of the act. Without awareness, it remains just a material. The moment intention is added, its role begins to shift. When you place salt in the corners of your space with a clear mind, you are not relying on the salt alone, you are aligning your actions with a decision. A decision to no longer allow heaviness to settle unnoticed. A decision to bring balance where there has been neglect. This is where many people misunderstand such practices. They believe the power lies entirely in the object, as if transformation can happen without their participation. But no external thing, no matter how pure, can replace inner awareness. Salt can absorb, but it cannot choose for you. It cannot clear what you continue to hold on to within yourself, your worries, your resentments, your constant distractions. The real significance of this act is not in what the salt does, but in what it reminds you to do. As you place it in the corners, you are creating a moment of pause. In that pause, you become aware of your surroundings and your inner state at the same time. You begin to notice where energy feels heavy, where your mind feels unsettled, where your attention has been scattered. This awareness is the true beginning of purification. Not force, not fear, but clarity. When you see things as they are, without ignoring or exaggerating them, you naturally begin to release what is unnecessary. Just as salt draws in what is excessive, your awareness begins to draw out what no longer serves you. Over time, this simple practice becomes less about the physical act and more about the state of mind it cultivates. You become someone who does not allow imbalance to remain unnoticed. You become attentive, calm, and deliberate in your actions. And in that shift, you realize that the greatest protection is not something you place around you, it is something you develop within. Salt then becomes a quiet teacher, not because it changes your life on its own, but because it points you back to the power of mindful action. Inner state matters more than rituals. No external act will work if your thoughts, words, and habits remain negative or restless. It is easy to believe that small rituals can solve large problems. The mind looks for something simple to hold on to, an action, an object, a routine that promises relief without requiring deeper change. But this belief can quietly lead you away from the truth. No external act, no matter how meaningful it appears, can transform your life if your inner state remains unchanged. You can place salt in every corner of your home, you can clean and organize your surroundings. You can follow every step with precision, but if your thoughts are constantly restless, if your words carry tension, if your actions create imbalance, then the effect will be temporary at best. The outer world can support you, but it cannot replace the work that must happen within you. Consider how the mind behaves. It moves quickly, often without awareness, jumping from one worry to another, holding on to past moments, anticipating future ones. In this constant movement, it creates its own kind of disturbance. Even in a clean and shut environment, a restless mind will not find peace. It will continue to search, to question, to feel unsatisfied. This is why many people change their surroundings again and again, yet still feel something missing. The truth is simple, but not always easy to accept. What you carry inside shapes what you experience outside. If there is tension within you, you will notice it everywhere. If there is calmness within you, even imperfect conditions will feel manageable. This does not mean your environment does not matter, it does. But it is only one part of a larger balance. Rituals like placing salt can be helpful when they are used as reminders. They bring your attention back to the present moment. They create a pause in your routine, a space where you can observe yourself. But if you begin to depend on them as solutions, you lose their true purpose. They are not meant to replace awareness, they are meant to guide you toward it. Look closely at your habits, notice the patterns that repeat without your intention. The thoughts that return again and again. The reactions that happen automatically. These are the real sources of imbalance. They shape your experience far more than any object placed in your surroundings. And unlike external conditions, they can only be changed through conscious effort. This is where real transformation begins, not in doing more, but in seeing clearly. When you observe your thoughts without immediately following them, they begin to lose their hold. When you choose your words with care, your interactions become lighter. When your actions align with calmness and clarity, your entire environment starts to reflect that shift. So as you perform any external act, remember its place. It is a support, not a solution. It is a reminder, not a replacement. The deeper work is always within you, in the way you think, speak, and act each day. When this understanding settles within you, you no longer look for quick fixes. You begin to value awareness over ritual, clarity over habit. And in that shift, you move from seeking peace outside to creating it from within. Mindful action leads to true protection. Real cleansing comes from awareness, calmness, and letting go of what no longer serves your peace. There is a quiet strength in small, mindful actions. They may appear insignificant at first, almost too simple to matter, yet they carry the ability to shift your entire state when done with awareness. Protection, in its truest form, is not about building barriers or reacting with fear. It is about creating balance, again and again, through the way you live and respond. When you take a simple step like placing something intentionally in your space, the real value lies not in the object but in the attention you bring to the moment. That pause, however brief, interrupts the automatic flow of your day. It gives you a chance to notice your surroundings, your breath, your thoughts. Most of life passes in a kind of unconscious repetition where actions are performed without presence. But the moment you act with awareness, even in a small way, you begin to step out of that pattern. This is where transformation quietly begins. Not through dramatic change, but through consistency in small conscious choices. When you bring attention to your environment, you begin to shape it. When you bring attention to your thoughts, you begin to understand them. And when you understand them, you are no longer controlled by them in the same way. Balance is not something you achieve once and keep forever. It is something you maintain. Just as a space can become cluttered again after being cleaned, the mind can become restless again if it is left unattended. This is not failure, it is simply the nature of things. Life is always moving, always changing, and because of that, awareness must also be continuous. Many people look for protection as if it is something external, something that can be placed around them to keep all difficulty away. But true protection is more subtle. It is the ability to remain steady even when things are uncertain. It is the ability to recognize when something is affecting you and to respond with clarity instead of reaction. This kind of stability cannot be given from the outside, it must be developed from within. Every mindful act strengthens this stability. Each time you pause instead of reacting, you create a little more space within yourself. You pulse, you reinforce a different way of being. Over time, these small shifts accumulate. They begin to shape not only how you feel, but how you move through the world. Letting go is also part of this balance. Holding on to what no longer serves you, whether it is a thought, a habit, or an emotion, creates its own kind of weight. When you release it even slightly, you make room for something lighter. This is not about forcing change, but about allowing it. In the end, mindful action is not about doing more, it is about being present in what you already do. When awareness becomes part of your everyday life, even the simplest actions carry meaning. And through those actions, repeated with intention, you create a quiet but lasting sense of peace and protection within yourself.